Hello, everybody. This is Royce Eddings, and I want to thank everyone for joining us on our YouTube show, Royce in the House. Also, want to thank my co-host, Bruce Collin. Bruce has a fantastic show, the R&B show. He's got a great channel. I encourage everyone to go check out, Bruce's channel. You're going to want to subscribe when you get there. He does a really good job. Bruce is a great guy, very knowledgeable, very articulate, very knowledgeable.
Thank you, Roy.
Uh, you're quite welcome, Bruce. Thank you. Boy, and with that, he left. Oh man. Okay, you're back. You're back. Okay. Well, this ought to be kind of fun tonight. I made a travel vlog, about an 8-minute travel vlog a while back on this very topic. And I traveled. I dropped my wife off at the airport in San Francisco. It's been 3 or 4 years now. Well, maybe 2.5 actually. And I went over to Haight Ashbury and made a little travel vlog and had fun. It was a great time. And so what we're going to be doing here tonight is we're going to be talking about the Summer of Love, a social phenomenon which took place in 1967, and where we had a migration of as many as 100,000 people to the San Francisco area, primarily concentrated just in the Haight Ashbury area. And so there was quite a phenomenon going on there. And let's see, before the neighborhood had been home to a small community of hipsters, residents who were interested in art, music, theater, literature. The Haight Ashbury district was sought out by the hippies to create a community based on the counterculture. And that word doesn't get used much anymore. But when I was a teenager, believe me, the counterculture was in the news like on a nightly basis. And I can remember sitting there with my family watching the nightly news. Almost every night they were filming. There was some footage of Haight Ashbury, and all these people with long hair and big beards, and bell-bottom pants, and the streets were just packed. I mean, like I said, they estimate as many as 100,000 people converged into the Haight Ashbury area. Well, there was a lot going on. Also, the Monterey Pop Festival also took place in early 67. So that brought tens of thousands of people from all across the country and even the world to that area just right outside of San Francisco. And a lot of those folks wound up at, the Haight Ashbury area. And what was really fun, what would have been really fun to be a part of, some of it anyway, was the Golden Gate Park and all the free concerts that were taking place at the Golden Gate Park. You had the Grateful Dead, Santana, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Janis Joplin with Big Brother and the Holding Company. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. The Steve Miller Band, CC&R, the Byrds. I think I said Jefferson Airplane already, but then you had the anthem song that was created, written by John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas. He wrote the song for Scott Mckenzie. And right before the show started, I was trying to load a small clip of it, but it was in the wrong format. It needed to be MP4. And I had like about 5 minutes before the show was starting. But, it's a song that goes, if you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. That became an anthem of this whole scene and this whole era. Okay. So the underground alternative youth culture, the counterculture that had been brewing in America and Europe for several years. They focused on San Francisco. People traveled from across the country. Like I said, there was also the Monterey Pop. Why did it happen then? Okay, well, it happened for a lot of reasons. This was a time of massive protests in the United States. We had the civil rights movement. With Martin Luther King and his assassination, we had the student movement. We had the anti-Vietnam War protests. We had the women's movement. We had the gay rights movement. We had the environmental movement and the United States Farm Workers movement led by Cesar Chavez. And every one of these movements was significant, and they were all taking place at approximately the same time. And what's funny is my grandfather was a farmer. And so all my aunts and uncles grew up on a small dirt farm in Texas. And when they sold the little farm, they moved to Delano because that was still kind of the farming area next to Bakersfield. And they actually traveled in some migrant camps picking fruit for a while. All the kids did. Then World War II broke out, and all the guys, joined the army and went in the war. But the interesting part was I can remember my cousins. We'd go visit my cousins every year, Delano, Bakersfield, where a lot of them stayed. And I can remember my cousin Alan telling me, these United Farm Workers guys, that are protesting, got their flags and everything, they drive through our neighborhoods at night and shoot guns in the air. So me and my buddies, we drove through their neighborhoods and shot guns in the air. I thought, oh man, that's getting pretty heavy, So anyway, these protests were, the Vietnam War protests. I was right on the cusp. I had to sign up for the draft as soon as I got out of high school. You only had so much time to sign up. And then what I was hearing at the time was they would draw names out of a hat, or a computer would, or however they worked it. And they were only drafting up from 0 to 100, and based on the number you got. And my number wound up being, it was based on the number of days in a year, and my number wound up being in the 300s, So I got classified only in case of a national emergency because my number was so high. But we didn't know what was going to happen in the next couple of years. I could have gotten drafted,
Yeah.
And then before I know it, the protests really were spinning out of control, and everybody was looking for a way out. And finally we did get out, and probably should have never got in, but that's all history.
Yeah.
And let's see. Let me say, hey, Bruce, let's say hi to a couple of our friends in the chat here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got, of course, Caitlin and Dan, just the facts.
Hi, Caitlin, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, we got AZ Mick, brother AZ Mick, Record Hound, Novice Nick. These guys all have shows. You guys need to go check out every one of these guys. Record Hound, AZ Mick, Novice Nick. Check out Novice Nick. Hey, Novice Nick, do you know much about the Summer of Love and the Haight Ashbury? Do you have something you'd like to jump on? If anybody wants to jump on, I'll tell you what. Okay, we've got Greg Man here. We got Dave Richard 241. Mary Jane, my good friend Mary Jane. Thanks for coming on, Mary Jane. We always just love seeing you here.
Hey, Mary Jane.
And yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna Michael Nolan's in the house. Link Royce. Oh, great. Beautiful. All right, Michael, it's coming, brother. It's coming. It is coming. It is coming. Sorry, folks. We have a co-host that wants to come back on the show tonight. I don't think he was feeling well earlier, but okay, Michael. So I just put the link up. Just hop aboard, brother. We're talking about one of your favorite topics. Got the music sanctuary here. We've got Jose Marino. Ron, thank you for showing up, brother. Steven's here. Rach sent me over. That's great, Steven. I was on Rachel's show a couple of mornings ago. I've been having a hard time going on her show like I love doing, just because I leave for work at like 7-ish in the morning. Her show comes on at 6, and I'm changing tools out in the truck and doing different things. So it's hard sometimes. But my brother Bill K, how you doing, man? You're not too far from San Francisco where you live. Des Harris, good to see you, buddy. Thank you. Yeah, Rachel sent me over. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Man, Rachel in the house here, man. She's filling up my stream. So great. Good to see you all. Thank you so much for showing up.
Yeah, half the fun is the chat.
Yeah, 67 Pepper. 67 Pepper just showed up. So anyway, I know that, isn't that great?
Yeah.
So we're covering the Haight Ashbury district in San Francisco in the Summer of Love, 1967. We also had the Monterey Pop Festival, which drew a lot of people here. There were so many great bands playing there. Otis Redding, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, just about everybody you can think of played there. So anyway, Rachel's goes. Yes, Chansey. Okay. Hey, Rachel, I have a link up. Let's see. Sorry, folks. I'm grabbing a link to put up here. Rachel, why don't you hit the link and join us, and let's talk about Haight Ashbury, the Summer of Love, the counterculture, the protest movements, and all of that. Okay. we'll have fun with it. We've already gone through a little bit, but yeah, you guys want to come and jump on? I'm sitting here ready for you. We'll turn this into a real party. Right?
Great.
Bruce?
Yeah, to get that fuller panel. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so Michael's supposed to be coming on. Rachel, we'd love to have you join us. I got a link up for you. All right. So anyway, we'll continue until we see somebody come on. So like the last thing I was talking about, what was so crazy about this era was all the protests that were taking place, and I'll go ahead and repeat it because the list is so amazing. I mean, we had the civil rights movement, with being led by Martin Luther King. We had the student movement. Looks like Rachel. How are you, Rachel?
I'm here. I'm hanging out.
Oh,
Rachel.
Awesome, man.
Hi, R&B show.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
I was just covering all the protests that were taking place. The civil rights movement, the student movement, the anti-Vietnam War movement, the women's movement, the gay rights movement, the environmental movement, the United Farm Workers movement, led by Cesar Chavez. And a lot of those issues were near and dear to me, believe me. So anyway, those were all the things that were taking place at this time. The Monterey Pop Festival was taking place at this time. We already had tens of thousands of people traveling from across the country to this area. So it just all coalesced, with somewhere in the neighborhood of low estimates are 75,000, high estimates are 100,000 people converged in the San Francisco area, primarily in that little Haight Ashbury district, which is, it really isn't that big. I'm sure you've been there, haven't you, Rachel?
I've been to San Francisco, that's for sure. And my American friends, when I got there, because they lived there, and then they wouldn't take me to Haight Ashbury. I said, I got to go to Haight Ashbury. I want to be right down the corner of Haight and Ashbury. And they wouldn't do it. They said,
oh, man.
It's boring. You don't want to go there. There's nothing to see. And then I'm going, hey, I'm on the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm on the Golden Gate Bridge. They go, no, you aren't. You're on the Bay Bridge or some fucking. I go, what? I'm not it was the word. But the thing is that they did have the big hills in San Francisco. I was on the hills of San Francisco. My God, I'm elderly. I've got a salmon arm. Oh, I got all old and ladylike. But anyway, so I was in San Francisco, but it was so much like my hometown of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
Oh, was it really?
You know why? Because back in the history, there was a trade route between up to north to Alaska. We're heading north to Alaska now. The rush is
right.
So the architecture.
Go north. The rush is on.
The rush is on. So the architecture was the same. Like the buildings, it was like my hometown because both towns were built around the same time. Victoria, San Francisco, Vancouver, and then you come on up and get into the Yukon, the gold rush. 49ers, right? The gold rush there. 1858, there was a gold rush in Yale, British Columbia. So everybody from San Francisco picked up the prospectors, and there's gold in them our hills, and so they came up here this way. So anyway, that's
awesome. So you're all moved in now, right? You're all settled.
We're still working on it. Sue put together the bathroom for the most part. We ripped out the bathroom. We got two new bathrooms being painted, put together, ripped out the bathtub and the one, new counters in both of them. This is your work, you know all this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm right in the middle of a bunch of it right now at my own house.
But the living room's done. This is my music room. I'm in my enclave.
Yeah, no, it looks cool.
Oh yeah, the color. And then Randy Deadwax 66 taught me about 3/4 inch birch. He says, I go, what do I need to? Because we built these ourselves. We got a pocket. Joint thing, the pocket joiner.
Anyway. Router.
Yeah, we got all that. We got all the equipment in order to put the thing together. We got a so what do you call those things? Miter saw, and it's a sliding miter.
Oh, sliding chop saw. Yeah.
Oh, chop saw. That you professionals know the thing. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. We put it together, and it's really great, Royce. It's fantastic.
That's awesome. That's great.
So 67, Summer of Love, everybody coming. Civil rights movement. This is on the go tonight. Oh,
yes.
Lots of stuff going on.
Oh, my God. I'm telling you. there's so much here. I actually went to Haight Ashbury a couple of years ago and made a little travel video. I had a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
But this was kind of what really happened. Okay, it was like a new generation of bohemians had developed through the early '60s, partly led by the Beat generation of poets and writers such as Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg. But the counterculture came to a head that year. Okay, in '67, the Human Being rally in San Francisco. You guys have heard about that, haven't you? The Human Being rally.
Yeah.
Michael Nolan.
Hi,
Michael
guys.
Nolan.
Oh, no.
I'm a
Okay,
member of the
okay.
tribe. It's
Hey, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm sorry, Royce. I had to go there, and then I had to go over there. And by the time I got here, half of me was still there. But better late than nada, I guess.
No, absolutely, brother. And you know what?
Hey, Rachel, how you doing?
We've been
I'm
talking.
doing great, Michael.
we've been
Great.
talking-
And Bruce? Sorry, Royce.
No, that's all good. We've been talking so much. I've neglected to give Rachel a shout out. I recommend everybody go to Rachel's Ghost. She has a
Yes.
fantastic show.
We're all
She
about
goes,
the music on my channel.
three-
I
like-
thought-
Like 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. Rachel, is that correct?
Yeah.
The hell you are, girl.
And
Oh
then
my
sometimes,
it's happening.
sometimes in the afternoons. And the next shout out, I've already given Bruce the R&B show a great shout out, but Michael Nolan,
Yes.
the bottom line. Yeah.
Oh.
And so Michael Nolan is, I've never seen the kind of growth I've seen in a channel. It's probably happened before, but it's the
No.
only one
Oh,
I'm
many
aware of.
times
No.
and much faster, Royce.
Not in
I
the
don't know
vinyl
about
community.
that.
No, Michael broke the mold. Nobody's done as fast as our Michael.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
So
And
that-
I'm a proud member of the tribe.
I
His
am
show is
too.
fantastic. Michael's,
Thank you, Rachel. I
Yes,
appreciate it.
It really is. I highly recommend everybody go to all three of these guys' channels and subscribe if you haven't already. And by the way, if you don't mind, you can subscribe to mine while you're at it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, the show's been growing. We had one little video we put on. It's called the Lost Jam Session, where
Right.
where Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin jammed together, and the tape got lost. But there was a whole bunch building up to it, and I had like 4.2 thousand views on that, and I gained a bunch of subscribers.
Yeah, you
from
did.
it. And so we're going to be doing a few more of those pre-recordeds. We've got one coming out Monday night. Is it? I think it's Monday night on the Van Halen brothers and all the prejudice they had to endure
Oh,
when
yeah.
they first got here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back with some more Black Sabbath stuff and some more Zeppelin stuff. And there's so much to cover. I mean, it's just insane. So anyway, like I was saying, the Monterey Pop Festival sort of embodied the themes of San Francisco as a focal point for the counterculture, and is generally regarded as one of the beginnings of the Summer of Love, the Monterey Pop Festival. And that's absolutely true. That contributed to the mass migration over here, from across the country and even from out of the country. So anyway, so beyond that, we have the Haight Ashbury district was a disaffected student groups gathered, became the focal point of the hippie counterculture. Psychedelic music had its moment too. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was released on June 1st, and other key albums including Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced, Cream's Disraeli Gears, all favorites of mine. Okay, Pink
Mhm.
Floyd's Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and the self-titled album by the Doors. So anyway, so what have you guys got on the Summer of Love?
It began sometime in 1965 with the Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead kind of beaming in on the Haight Ashbury district.
Yeah, and they were yeah.
But it was official. It was official on what was that? I even wrote it down as a note. It was sometime summer of 1966.
67 is considered the Summer of Love.
67
Yeah.
Summer of
Yeah.
Love.
But
Yeah.
see, they became a community that everybody built up to. Matter of fact, all the locals will tell you that it was the Summer of Love that destroyed it.
Yeah.
Okay, because it was
Okay.
over. It was over for the most part. You were talking about the organization that Mr. Coyote belonged to, Peter Coyote,
Okay.
and they held a mock funeral. And that was sometime
Yeah,
in
yeah.
October of 1967. So
Right.
it was a short summer, baby. It was a
Yeah.
short summer. And out of the major scenes that created so much music, think about it. We've talked about the New York scene. We've talked about the British scene. We've talked about the Canyon, right?
Right.
We've
Laurel
talked
Canyon.
about the Fillmore's East and West. And now we're kind of homing in my home territory, San Francisco. And all of a sudden, out of all of those, none of them were as short-lived as the Haight Ashbury, or at least the true Haight Ashbury.
Yeah, and you're right. They held a mock funeral at the end of it.
Yeah. What were they called?
Well,
the somethings.
Okay. Okay. Many of the originators fled the scene and went elsewhere. But in October, a mock funeral, the death of the hippie ceremony, was held by some that remained. They all went back to the universities, got jobs, found ways to continue their alternative lifestyle, or went abroad. And it's funny because so many things that coming out of that I expected to change within a few years, like say legalizing marijuana, things like that. It's taken like a lifetime for that stuff to change.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the other interesting thing about it too is like just to piggyback off what Michael was saying, indeed it was a short window because as we saw shortly after, the 60s were going to take a very, very dark turn to kind of cap off the decade.
Yeah, right.
And what's funny is that George Harrison was visiting by what
I was going to mention that too, Bruce. Absolutely.
Like kind of a fertile artistic ground and all this stuff, and probably picturing something like a very cool scene like in London. Instead, he comes here and he finds it's almost like a druggy, pimply faced kids and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, dirty place. Everybody's strung out on drugs.
He found it depressing. George just described it as depressing.
Yeah, he called them spotty people.
Spotty people.
All these spotty people.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, no, it was a crazy time. Like I said, I remember watching it nightly on the news with my family after dinner out in the living room. And it was quite a scene. I didn't make it up there until 1971. I was living in Long Beach, California, and my friend said, let's take a trip up north. And we took off. We went to Haight Ashbury, went all over the place. We stopped everywhere, all the way up and down the coast. And we had a great time, but things were different then. There, you could still tell there was a number of addicts, huddled on the side streets and things like that, sitting down, dirty, must have been homeless. And it's a whole different world up there today now. I mean, the property must be worth a fortune now. And there's beautiful, beautiful architecturally designed homes up there on all the side streets and stuff like that. Now it's pretty much just a tourist attraction now, but there's so much memory there, so much took place.
The psychology of the idea and the ideal, still lives on, and would still continue to influence even artistically, for decades after. People always cycle back around to the psychedelic, aesthetic. Right.
Well, and that was a big thing. There was the psychedelics, Well, you had the Golden Gate Park right there going on at the same time, before and after. And I tried to get him on my show. My former next door neighbor, the house has sold twice since then. But Pete Kanan was going to come on my show and tell his story. He was a San Francisco police officer, and Pete was getting in a lot of trouble in the 60s. His dad was career military. Okay. And Pete and his friends were getting in a lot of trouble. And so Pete wound up joining the military to get away from it all. And and when he got back, his friends
did a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people were given the option. And when he got back, his friends had all joined the Hells Angels, and they were members of like the Oakland chapter, where Sonny Barger had incorporated all the chapters, made all the colors the same for every chapter. They wrote the rules, the contract. And so here Pete is. Pete joins the police force, right? So Pete's a policeman, and some of his closest friends that he grew up with were in the Hells Angels, the Oakland chapter. And So he had a hell of a lot of great stories to tell. They even gave him a chopper. The Oakland Hells Angels gave my next door neighbor, the police officer, a chopper. But anyway, beyond that, he couldn't be a member because he was a cop. That was against the rules. Probably the biggest rule. But those guys like Fouki, he referred to him as Fouki. He was a secretary treasurer under Sonny Barger. And they would drive down to visit Pete, and they'd go down to the Carlton Hotel, the fanciest place in town. They'd be wearing their Hell's Angel colors. It was like women would turn around and see him walk in and drop the glass out of their hand onto the floor and break it, in shock. And it was just that. And Pete goes, "Where were you, Royce? I tried to get a hold of you. I wanted you to have lunch with Fouki and the guys that came down." I go, "Damn it! I should have had. I wished I would have known. I would have went down there and joined you. I'm working right here in town." Twice I got that offer after it was too late. So anyway, Pete has a lot of stories. I mean, stories that you would not even believe, And he was going to come on, but he'd had a stroke and stuff, and him and his wife decided he probably shouldn't come on. He's still kind of coming back from that, but he would have had some great stories. This guy had a 37-foot sailboat that he sailed to Hawaii twice.
Oh, nice.
He was constantly sailing it down to Cabo San Lucas and back. And I got to go sailing with him several times. I mean, the boat sat right next door. And we'd go sailing to places to go surfing, like on the Channel Islands off of Santa Barbara, and a place called the Ranch just past Point Conception that has the most pristine surf. It's like the best surf in all of California. And you could only get there by boat because the ranch owners will not let you cross their land. So I remember one time I went out there surfing, and him and Eddie from Brazil were going to continue on out to the Channel Islands that time, but I couldn't stay that long, so I had to walk out. Well, you get in a lot of trouble even walking out. You have to stay in the middle of the railroad tracks walking out, right? So, because that's like the ranchers don't own the middle of the railroad tracks. So I'm walking out, and here comes a guy on a little four-wheel ATV, a rancher, comes running, screaming up to the fence line, goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh man," I said, we're out on the sailboat surfing, and I got sick. And my wife's coming to Halama Beach to pick me up, so I'm walking out. He goes, "Oh, okay, well, we'll stay on the railroad tracks, would you?" So one thing I wanted to add to that, which is completely away from the story altogether, was I always thought I would hear a train coming for frickin' miles, the vibration, the noise, but there was something weird about getting between these tall hills. It changed everything. And I remember walking on the railroad tracks, getting off once in a while because it's kind of hard to keep skipping over those damn ties. And I remember looking back, and I never heard it. I never felt it. I never felt the vibration. There was a train really not that far behind me.
Oh.
And that was kind of a shock to me to see that happen. Anyway, let's get back to our story. Pete had some great Haight Ashbury stories because he would go down. Now I know why I told this. He would go down to the Golden Gate Park where all those great bands were playing, where everybody was on acid, everybody was dealing drugs, and he would arrest people. He was down there undercover. Okay, enough of all that.
Just a little commercial for Jim at Record Collector News. This month's issue is all about San Francisco. Norman Maslow, who hails from San Francisco, has done a lot on his channel about San Fran, and entertains us all as he recounts it, growing up in that city, his hometown. Anyway, Jim, Record Collector News in the magazine. Get your latest edition, especially if you're in a great Golden State, folks. Grab a copy of that thing. Jim has it available in other parts of the world as well, and you can subscribe to it and support Jim because he's a hell of a nice guy. And I want to put that out there because we're talking.
Oh, great!
San
Sure.
Francisco, Summer of Love, and holy smokes, he's right.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. I can remember all the talk about communal living and people living in multiple families in one place, and everybody farming and contributing, and everybody. Did you know anybody that did that, Michael?
No, not there, not in the city. I was in touch with a couple of commune houses back in the early 70s. One of them in our town, Santa Rosa, was called The House, if you can believe that. The House. And, Well, then I have to get into a political discussion. I'd rather not. But those communes didn't work. They didn't work.
No.
And matter of fact, what I saw in my local town happened right there in the Haight Ashbury district. First of all, the incoming offered nothing because everything was they had a store. They had a clinic, a medical clinic, and they had what they thought was their own apothecary, a smoke shop that opened up. That's why I say summer of '66. Once that so-called smoke shop or apothecary was created, that's when they became a community. Everything else grew out of that. And of course, the unwashed masses, see a free ticket, as you can see in every damn West Coast town these days. And what ensues is homelessness, drug addiction, mental health problems, and everything else. And the Haight Ashbury is the perfect little test tube to prove it. It's got the total solution of the magic potion to destroy a community. And but in its heyday, when it was happening, the two drugs were marijuana, which I have no problem with. I think it has a purpose. All right. And LSD, I in good conscience, I could never say, yeah, that's a valid thing. But I partook, and it did help me in a creative way from time to time. But all that stuff can take away when hopelessness and everything is even marijuana can be a depressant. And when you're in a lot of pain and everything, that leads to the harder substances, the real dive into the gutter. And I think that's what we saw. But it was a magnificent dream for about 14 months?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I went there too. And
I went during that time. It's not like I wasn't there, because my friend and I, in '67, I would have been 13. All right. Ever since I was 11, a friend of mine had a much older sister, a college student, and she would take us down to the playland down there, with a big wooden sliding down 3 or 4 stories and all of that. So her being a college student, we always went through there. And then by the time I was 14, I was hanging out there occasionally, just with friends to be part of the scene. No,
I hear you.
So that's my experience with the area. But I was there. I did see it, and there was a magical feel to it, Royce. There really was.
There is. Yeah. You can even sense it a little bit now, knowing the history and all. But let me say hi to Steve real quick. Steve,
and the art that came out. The art that came out.
But actually, what I meant when I said I went there, I was talking about LSD. I tell you, the first time I'd laughed so hard, my ribs ached for days. But if you weren't, if your head wasn't in the right place, I could see where things could spin out of control quickly.
Even creatively. I mean, we look at Sid Barrett. I mean, look at what we lost there. Whether that's the exacerbation of already pre-existing conditions and then heightened by that. But we did see that.
And of course, with LSD, what I saw was 3-dimension everything. I mean, I'd see tracks following things. I could see leaves laying over the paint, over the cement, right? And it was I was in such wonder of that. I didn't laugh. I didn't have a laugh experience, but it was an astonishment. There
was a lot of astonishments on that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember I went to Pismo Beach to a Jimi Hendrix impersonator concert. I think his name was Randy Hansen. And the guy was absolutely amazing. And I was on mushrooms. And boy, you talk about a trip. It was something.
Sounds like quite a night.
It was quite a night. The guy that took us there got kicked out. I don't know what he was doing, but I went into the lobby and there was a bunch of guys around him, and he was arguing with them, and they just grabbed him and took him and threw him out.
See, I was that much younger. There goes the bot. I was that much younger than Michael. So in 1967, I'm a kid. I'm born in 58, so I'm 9 years old. So what my generation, just being that much younger, we got all these anti-drug films. So I still remember this one. They were trying to scare us straight because we had all heard about Art Linkletter's daughter had a on acid, and she jumped through a window and threw herself out the window, which in hindsight apparently wasn't quite exactly what happened, but it was this kind of stuff that was in the vibe, in the air. So I remember this kid, and it's available on YouTube. I went looking for it. The kid takes a bunch of pills. They was talking about Bennies and Dexies and uppers and downers. And this all the shit, right? And you're 9, so you don't know. You know, it's Johnny Quest. I want to watch Hachi do a magic rope trick, and you're a kid. You're watching your cartoons. And so then the kid's in there. He takes his pills in the watch and film. We all had to watch, right? The same time they were showing us the automobile things. Nobody's old enough to drive, but they're trying to say, "Listen, you little buggers! Watch out when you're driving your car." And they show people through the windshield, and they're dead, and they're
oh no,
and you're just horrified. You're just horrified, but because it was horrible. But anyway, so the kid goes in.
I'm gonna let my dog out.
Then he goes in the mirror, and his face turns into a monster. And I'm like, ah! So I was scared straight, but it didn't stop me from getting hashish or marijuana.
I feel like I missed something.
Like I wasn't good. Heroin did not appeal to me anyway. You know, the whole idea, because they're showing people sticking the freaking needle in your vein and you got to tie it. I'm just going
me too. Yeah.
Doesn't look like fun. Fuck that.
But you know what, Rachel? Everything you say, see, you're the age of my younger siblings.
Yeah.
So, and I was at home. I work down in LA and then I come home. I had a room. I paid half the rent. I was an adult, but I still had a home base at 18. And so I remember I have 3 brothers and a sister, and they all went through that. And I remember offering a brother a joint. And, he just got this paranoid, no. And next thing he goes off to my mom, and tells him, oh no. And I'm going, oh man. Yeah, because, he grew up with your stuff, man.
Yeah.
He's 5 years younger than me, so he's a couple of years younger than you.
Yeah.
So I remember these things, and then my first ticket that I got, and I had to kind of go see films and stuff, or it was probably my 5th or 6th ticket. But anyway, they showed that, and I go, what the hell is this? And they go, oh, they show these at the high schools these days. And I went, headless people? I mean, headless from here up.
Oh,
you saw the teeth in the body, but the head was lying right next to it. And I'm going, holy smokes. I couldn't believe it.
All that kind of stuff.
I must have missed that one.
Article, I made the mistake. I'm 8 years old. Readers 8 years old. Reading Reader's Digest. There's an article about a guy who got mouth cancer, and he's talking about, and I'm in the cancer ward, and everybody's a walking freak because they've got half their faces cut off. And I'm like, holy shit. And he goes, and I knew that I was God. One of them. I'm 8 years old. This will mess you up, folks. Don't read Reader's Digest. I cannot believe this article's in there. So
that's crazy.
God,
This explains so much about
more about the psychology that's going on, Michael. Oh my God. But yeah, true story. But on the other side of it, the music was great. But being a kid, you're a kid. Come on, baby, light my fire. So when one kid goes to me, come on, baby, pull my wire, and you're 9 or 12, and you go, that's because it's all mature, because they're like, oh, it's a sex thing, come on, baby, pull my wire. But the Doors were big, and the whole music stuff. I mean, it's on the radio. We were hearing it around. Everybody's aware of it.
And we got it in so many sub formats. I think the
Mike
richest
Estevez.
the richest mining of psychedelia is from this area. And boy, Britain gives us a ton of competition in that.
Yeah.
But when you think of the Grateful Dead, like the world's, most people would say the greatest jam band. I beg to differ, but I'd nominate them as the third. But then you have, the Jefferson Airplane coming out of nowhere and talking about a hookah smoking caterpillar. And you never heard anything like that. But then you would get
no, you never did.
Then you would get acts like A Beautiful Day and the wonderful hypnotic White Bird, by David LaFlame and his wife there. To me, that's what I hold that up with Guinevere by Crosby, Stills, and Nash as one of the gems. There's also a Moody Blues in there that I like a whole lot. That's on, which one is that? In Search of a Lost Chord? Anyway, I consider them just, but it's all psychedelic. And yet you listen to other things in A Beautiful Day and they come off kind of straight. Yet, again, we talk about Paul McCartney painting his ear blue. They just got a quirk to the track, and then the rest of it is kind of played straight. And you're going, wow, this doesn't sound like What About Me? Dino song, is kind of a straight version, but it was all so mixed, man.
A lot of it was like osmosis, like it was in the culture. Like you're watching the Brady Bunch when they show up in the 70s, and they're wearing quote mod clothes, or you're watching the Smothers Brothers, and you got the Hollies on singing Carrie Ann, and they've got the striped pants. Well, I got a pair of those stripes. There's a picture of me as a kid with the psych bell bottom things and paisley shirts, and that was the thing. So it went kind of mainstream. Everybody had it. And the hair was getting a little longer, where you couldn't do a whole lot with it, especially for us school kids. Trouble. The teachers were still apt to grab scissors. And, in those days, you had no protection. We had they'd strap you. There was corporal punishment was still a thing, and right up until 71, had corporal punishment going.
Yeah, we had I got a lot of corporal punishment.
Yeah, well, God,
me too.
Jesus, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it became kind of mainstream in the fashion. Sonny and Cher, Sonny walking around with the fur thing he had. And so there was a lot of the fashion sense about it all. And the beads and all the rest of it that went with flares and, flared pants and this sort of thing.
And music moved so fast then that already by the next year, a lot of this stuff is being sort of rebelled against, because now it starts shifting back to roots music and everyone's moving back to that kind of thing. So it's it's a short window, both culturally and even musically. A lot of this stuff, again, it takes a shift in a whole different direction by the following summer, you could argue.
That's exactly what happened, Bruce. There was a short period of time that these bands, Moby Grape and all of these guys, right? They were coming out left and right, but the bands following them right after, Creedence Clearwater Revival, every member said they'd spend their spare time when they were a nobody band and Tom was still singing lead in the Haight Ashbury district. So the Creedence sound, this swamp sound that John Fogerty created, came right out of Haight Ashbury. But we don't consider that as, except for maybe Susie Q, as necessarily psychedelic rock. We see it as, almost a new genre, but blues-based rock would be a good place to place that. Then we got Boss Skaggs, and then the Airplane became the Starship, and then the Starship became just the Starship, and then everything. We got Pablo Cruz. We got a lot of smooth players out of San Francisco right after Haight Ashbury. So look what it sprouted. Like I said, it was almost like a Harry Potter spell cast over. It only lasts so long, but you can make it grow, that kind of
it
thing.
evolved, and it kind of set the stage for all that country rock that started coming on. And because the whole thing with San Francisco and the hippie thing, it became kind of a parody of itself. So on some level, it kind of became a joke because the bubblegum stuff, my green tambourine, so you got lemon pipers going with the green tambourine and yummy.
But I loved it.
I got love in my tummy, all this stuff. And even as like a 10-year-old, so now we're like 1968, I'm 10. And so 68, you're getting all this bubblegum. 69, I'm 11. And you're getting a lot of this bubblegum stuff. And even then, as an 11-year, I go, that ain't cool. This stuff isn't cool. The cool stuff is Led Zeppelin. Well, Zeppelin wasn't really a thing yet. But what was a thing was the Doors. We knew the Doors were cool. We knew Hendrix was cool. And then, of course, by the time 70s roll around, now we're starting to lose them really quick. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and all that.
We've got someone that just joined us, Johnny. Johnny, how you doing?
Johnny.
Not bad. If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're gonna meet some gentle people there. Peace.
Who won't mug you much.
Hey, you guys
Johnny,
have such an interesting conversation with the talking about like CCR and Ashbury, where they used to hang out and where it was all
Ashbury.
happening. And
right.
And Toronto used to have an area, Yorkville area, way back when it was used to happen over there. A lot of stuff with Gordon Lightfoot there and different singers there in Toronto. So you guys were really interesting to listen to. I had to come on the panel to say hello because.
Well, that's great. We're glad you're on the panel.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And by the way, Gordon Lightfoot's a personal hero of mine. He's one of the major players of the singer-songwriters, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. He wrote a lot of songs for a lot of people. That's for sure. We miss him.
Yes,
we miss him here in Canada for sure. He's a great loss to the music industry.
Great loss. Yeah.
And he had plans to tour this summer. That's the sad part. Yeah.
He did. Yep.
Wow.
It was sad to hear that he passed away for sure.
Yeah, I was very sad to hear that. I liked everything he did.
Yep.
Well, Sundown's my theme. That's me.
That's great.
The guy that the character in that song. That's my theme. Don't you go messing around my backside. I swear to God, sometimes I think I'm the last remaining cowboy in America. I have rules. You don't cross my fences. You don't steal my horses. Right? All right. So crossing my fence, I find you in bed with my woman. Her and I are going to have a discussion, but you aren't going to make it out of the room. All right. Okay. And if you steal my horse or try to carjack me, I'll act accordingly. They hang horse thieves, don't they? And you know what? It's about time we get back to like that kind of common sense anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, it's real simple. You're a good guy or you're a bad guy. And I know we all lie somewhere in between, but you got to tether to something. And nobody wants to do that these days,
Going back to Gordon Lightfoot, if Bob Dylan likes Gordon Lightfoot and Gordon Lightfoot is his idol, then that Gordon Lightfoot had something going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because Bob Dylan was really admired Gordon Lightfoot, and that what better compliment? Cool. What better compliment?
No, there is no better compliment.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Right.
There were so many great tributes that came out at that time. It was very well regarded. So artistically, by his peers.
Yeah.
Can I share something? I don't want to take up your time, but let me share a little thing that when Gordon Lightfoot passed away. The song of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Well, okay. Detroit, they have a Mariners church or Mariners, and they always every year they ring a bell 12 times for the Mariners that passed. Well, This year,
Really?
which was very touching, they rang the bell 13 times. One for Gordon Lightfoot.
No, that's
Awesome.
great.
Wow.
Great story, man.
Yeah.
Yep, one for Gordon Lightfoot. So,
and a great song. That's very fitting as far as I'm concerned.
yep. So he was well regarded in the music industry for sure.
Well
God rest his
regarded.
soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I don't want to take your panel away. I just wanted to point that out because
Well,
we're
and
glad
you got to
did.
hand
That's
it to
that's
him,
a great
man. He
story.
stayed on tour, he stayed on tour and toured all the time. So he lived the life, man. You can say that at least.
Yes, sure did. Sure did.
Dave, the pickup artist, the horse thieves and the hate. That's funny.
But the gentleman, I was listening to the gentleman with I don't. He's got the Beatles sign behind him because I'm a Beatles fan.
Michael.
But I was listening. I was listening to talk about the heyday and during the Ashbury and all that. And he reminds me. This guy's cool as. He reminds me of actually. I picture him back then during Ashbury time, hanging out. We're at in Ashbury in that area, smoking a bit of weed or whatever, hanging out with the singers or whatever, whoever's up and coming singers, like that.
That's not hard to imagine.
I did my share.
I was young. Like I was young, just like what Rachel. I was on Rachel's channel earlier, which was a great channel as well. But I'm a year older than Rachel. She knows. So I was kind of young back then. But I remember watching the Ed Sullivan Show with Jim Morrison and right. Ed Sullivan wouldn't let him sing a particular song. Come on, baby, like my fire, I believe it was. We couldn't get much higher. Ed Sullivan didn't want him to sing that part of the song. And he said, "Well, guess what? Right. Too friggin' bad." And he did sing it
anyway. Yeah,
they were never invited again. Never invited again on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Right.
Yeah, you never knew what to expect. That's for sure.
It was always good for us being in Canada when Ed Sullivan come on because he'd always say, for our youngsters out there and all over the United States and Canada, and he'd always throw in Canada for us. So we're going, represent. Way to go, Ed.
We have a really big shoe, really big. The next show we're going to have is Jim Morrison, and I don't think we'll have him on there again. So, but once you made it on, the thing is once you made it on the Ed Sullivan Show, you made it.
Yeah,
because he had a lot of pull, right? So,
yeah. And if he didn't, and it was uncomfortable for him to bring these newer bands on. Yeah. And notice none of them got the really nice boys, which the Beatles got from him. He liked them. He genuinely liked them. And the rest of it just became a ratings chase for him, especially the older he got and as the show was concluding and everything, it became a ratings race, and it was at a time that the weirder the act is, the cooler the numbers are,
Right.
Now, what Dan's saying there about this Lumpy, why did they replace the first Roger? I think that was Roger Carmel who played in The Mothers-in-Law. I think it was the actor Roger Carmel. He was the guy who played Harry Mudd in the Star Trek thing, the guy with women episodes and stuff. He's quite a character, but he's a big cocaine guy, from what I understand. And but Lumpy's dad was Richard Deacon, and he was an interesting guy. Both guys were gay, which it doesn't mean anything. It was a trivia factoid. And Richard Deacon was, of course, on Dick Van Dyke's show, Mel. They were always teasing about the hairpiece and all the rest of it on there with what's his name? Rob Reiner's dad there.
Yeah.
Carl.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Carl Reiner,
Yeah, but I think it probably had something to do with drugs, Dan. I think Carmel was quite a guy. Roger Carmel was quite a character, from what I understand.
Dick Van Dyke is still alive and still going strong.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Wow. That is unbelievable.
He's going, I don't know how strong he is. He's like 90.
Well, he was going strong. I don't know what now.
Well, I mean, he has, I've seen recent videos with him. I've always been a Dick Van Dyke fan. Not a huge fan, but still watch his work from time to time. I mean, any show that has Laura Petrie and Pedal Pushers has got my attention for life.
Mary Tyler Moore. How many guys went through puberty because of
Oh,
Mary
yes.
Tyler Moore and her little slacks?
Hallowed be Laura's name. You know, that was my first serious crush on somebody famous. Was Laura Petrie. I didn't give a damn that she was Mary Tyler Moore. It was the Laura Petrie character, you know?
Yeah.
And boy, there's my future wife.
You're such a beautiful lady.
I'm 9 years old. There's my future wife.
I was going to say, how old is Dick Van Dyke? I was watching him when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
97. Dan the Man said 97.
Right.
And overall, you know, he still looks decent, you know, considering, you know, you think pretty well. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, he looks his age, but he's still got that distinguished kind of look to him.
Yeah.
He's still pretty damn sharp, quick-witted. He can come off with one-liners. Even at that age, right there.
As an actor, I just liked him. Everybody liked him. He was such a likable guy. Yeah.
Despite him having the worst English accent on the planet, you know.
In Mary Poppins? Mary Poppins?
Yeah, but you wouldn't change it. You wouldn't change that accent for the life of you. It's so fake, but it's part of our fabric now.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know that somebody said Mary Poppins. That really strikes a chord with me. I had 3 little girls, and I can't even tell you how many times I sat with them and watched that show. And because they watched it every single day, and I'll tell you what, I liked it too.
Me too.
1964. I'm in grade 2. I remember this frickin' thing. Or grade 1. I'm in grade 1, grade 2. And it was the show to watch. Every kid in the school ground was like, "You seen Mary Poppins? You seen this Mary Poppins? You got to go see Mary Poppins." And of course, my dad's old school, so RCMP guy, like a Fed cop. So I go, "Hey, Dad, you got to take me to Mary Poppins." You're not going to, yell. I was like, "Oh, Dad." So I never did. I've never seen the full film. I mean, we know, just that film, supercalifragilistic. We know it all. And the dancing with the penguins and all the whole thing.
Right.
And with the coal miner thing and the chimney sweeps.
The chimney sweep. Yeah.
Oh my God! But it's so iconic. But I never watched the whole thing from beginning. I've never done.
It's one of those films.
I didn't care. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those films, Rachel, that you really you have to almost, as an adult, you almost have to have some sort of glow on to begin with. A light one, though. You want your senses about you, just a glass or two, maybe, and just give yourself plenty of time. It casts a bit of a spell. It's not like The Sound of Music that actually grabs you into like a real serious situation.
Sound of Music I've seen many times from beginning to end. So that one I've always, what do we do with a lady named Maria? So that one I've seen, holy smokes. Flying Nun sparked my, that is funny. Flying Nun, Sister Betrayal, remember this? And Alejandro Ray, the very handsome Alejandro Ray out there. That was fantastic, boy. What's her name there? You like me, you really like me.
Sally Field. Yeah.
67 Pepper said he looks a lot better than Keith Richards. I thought anybody looks a lot better than Keith Richards.
The thing with Keith is he's not as old as so many. Everybody's going, Keith, he'll live forever. Wait a sec, the guy, he's just turning 80 or something this year. I think
he's pickled. He's pickled. I don't know how the hell he manages.
He's been pickled since about 36, I think. Pretty much. Yeah. Even in his mid-30s, he was starting.
Yeah,
he had the crowd.
Keith Richards' face just to have his stories.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff Davidson, I highly recommend it.
For me, McHale's Navy. I'll go with McHale. Tim Conway in that.
Tim
Ernest
Conway.
Borgnine. So, and it came after, so I was older. Bilko, I like now that I'm older. I can go back and appreciate it. Phil Silvers, and of course the cast of characters that showed up. So many of them in the films of the '60s and the comedies.
Oh, wow.
But McHale's Navy for myself because of my age group, it was right in the pocket for me. I watched it all the time.
Par 54, where are you?
Yeah, those guys, that's Al Lewis and Fred Gwynn. Of course, they go on to do the Munsters. So you take those two guys. Yeah.
How about Broderick Crawford?
I
think I used to be able to imitate him. I can't even hardly hear his voice right now. It's starting to come to me.
Yeah, Smothers Brothers had a short-lived sitcom called My Brother the Angel. Tommy was an angel, and Dick was the brother. He was alive, and Tommy could disappear and do stuff. It was
on that show that they developed the whole "Mom Likes You Best" routine.
Mom Like You
because
Best,
the angel used to be older than the now older brother. And so that was that whole routine. I love that show.
Yeah,
I never one that I never missed was I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah.
Any particular reason, Royce?
only one.
I can imagine.
Do you know what's interesting about I Dream of Jeannie is before or around the same time, Burl Ives had done a movie where Burl Ives was a genie. And Barbara Eden is a human girl in the thing, but the genie is Burl Ives. And it happened around the same time. I forget the name of it, but I remember seeing that.
How about the Rifleman?
Yeah,
Chuck Connors watched it every week.
Yeah,
every week.
Johnny
brought
Crawford.
to you by checks, as I recall.
Johnny Crawford cut a few records. You didn't know that, right? Did you?
Yeah, he did.
Cut a few records, which I was kind of surprised.
That's right.
Yeah.
Little like teen kind of records type thing, songs.
Well, and he had a great death scene in the film El Dorado with John Wayne. He played a rancher's younger son who tries to bushwhack John Wayne. John Wayne has to shoot him. He's gut shot. Paul always told me I'd die. You gut shot, and he goes, "Oh, really?" And so he turns back, and the kid kills himself.
Yeah, I think I saw that movie. I think. Yeah.
That's Rifleman's son right there. He was about 18 to 21 at that time. Yeah.
They had great shows back then. Come on, they had like My Favorite Martian or
I watched that a lot too. That was the Incredible Bill Bixby and Ray Walston. Ray Walston was Uncle Martin.
Yeah,
and that was a lot of fun.
I love Ray Walston's performance in The Stand, the original Stand that came out as a limited series on TV. God, he and that was shortly before he died. Within 5 years anyway. And what a way to go out, man. What a way to go out.
What was that spy movie with Ilya Kuryakin and David?
That's The Man
from
Uncle.
The Man from Uncle. That was a great show.
And then they had Effie Zimbalist was in The Girl from Uncle. I think she
yeah.
I thought The Man from Uncle was kind of like boring. Tell you the truth. I don't know.
I had the little Marx figures. You remember the Marx? Like when we were kids. Young people, anybody watching this thing's under 50 or something. We didn't have action figures. Everything there was G.I. Joe was the new thing, 64. But before that, everything was so you could get these static figures from Marx Toys, and you could get Cowboys Indians, Ford Wahoo or whatever the hell it was. And but then the other one they had were these action figures, but they weren't action. They were just Ilya Kuryakin. You had Napoleon Solo just holding a gun, and he had just thing. It's like the little army men. They'd have the grenade launcher, the guy with the sniper guy, and then your firecrackers for 4th of July, whatever up here in Canada would be for Halloween. We'd crack open the firecracker, you'd light it, and you could torture a little army man.
That's right. Yeah, I did that actually. I was doing that kind.
I love The Man from Uncle. It came on right after the Rat Patrol, and the Rat Patrol almost preceded it in time. To me, it was almost you know, and a few years later, look what we wound up with, you know. And I always loved spy stuff, and what kid doesn't want to play a secret agent? You know, I loved it. I loved it.
That was one of the first shows that was in color. You know, when they used to go NBC in color,
right,
and then they would go the Peacock, and they'd show the color parts. And so I go over, but it was like on my friend's grandparents' place. Let's go to my grandparents. They got a color TV. Let's go there. And I remember watching Rat Patrol. It was on a TV about this big. And so the two of us kind of peering into this, like trying to figure it out. And working the color, we watched Space Ghost. And you turn the bands up on Space Ghost wristbands. So they were magenta. They're supposed to be red inside the line. And you can overpower the color so much because you're a kid fucked up on Fruit Loops. And so you're trigger high anyway, and you had to go for all the color, you know. Excuse my friend, but we were excited, you know, and with the color was such a novel thing.
The year color came out for me, the big shows for me in our household was Flipper, and then Gilligan's Isle, the second season, color. I was already a fan of the first season, but color. But the first time color show I ever saw was the Batman show, and because we didn't have a color TV, and I finally got invited over to this nice lady who knew I was a comic book fan and all of that, and so we got to see it, and I had never seen anything so wonderful in my life. And that pow and that zap, that was serious shit, man. I took that seriously. I was about 12 before I started picking up on the fine little humor that was in, you know. But when you're 9, man, 9, that's a serious Batman, you know.
Yeah, no, that was good. You know what I remember is just how many Western movies there were. You know, you mentioned The Rifleman. Someone else brought up Maverick, still watching it, Steve Midtham.
Bonanza.
But I mean, Bonanza. I was going to say that. Bonanza, Rawhide.
The Rebel.
The Rebel?
Rawhide. The Rebel.
Yeah. Was that Johnny Yuma was a rebel? Is that the one?
Yep. With Nick. He later went over and did a bunch of Godzilla movies in Japan.
He was friends.
But I mean,
with,
you could turn on the TV and something. There was always a Western
Nick
show.
Mason? No, not Mason. Nick Mason. What am I thinking?
I know.
The Lone Ranger.
Nick Adams. Nick Adams. Rachel. Yeah.
And he was good friends with James Dean. Those guys were buddies.
Right.
And then Adams ends up kind of overdosing around 1968 or 69, something in there. But very sad. But he was at the top of his game when he was doing that Paladin with Richard Boone. Paladin,
right?
And
absolutely.
Disney got him things. I guess it was Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and all that.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I used to love that song. Daniel Boone was a man. Yes, a big man.
Yeah, we got all racist with that song. I can't even sing it what we did with that thing, but it was horrible. But that's what kids were like back then. Yeah.
That's what kids were
I loved it. And I love Chuck Connors in Branded.
Oh, Branded was
Branded,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, man. On that thing was my favorite part where they got the sword and then they take the lapels, the epaulettes off his uniform.
Yes.
Oh, I remember that. I thought that was the coolest thing. I was oh my God.
How about
and the final refrain? What do you do when you're branded? When you know you're a man, you know. And so every episode is him trying to find some, way back.
Yeah.
How about Wanted Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen?
There you go.
See the size of his bullets? Oh my God! How about here's a song. Here's a tune you might know, and just by saying.
It's Andy Griffith.
You know what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I watched every friggin' episode of that twice. I loved it. I loved
Andy, do you think over these
All right, Floyd, enough of that.
Floyd. I loved I loved Don Knotts.
Oh yeah, his that whole skinny. Oh, he was wonderful.
Here's a bit of true something. Floyd that played Floyd. Apparently, later on during the series, he had a back problem, serious back problem. They had to. There was a lot. They cut a lot of his time spots, like where he showed on. They cut a lot of that out because he couldn't actually stand too long.
Oh, he got sicker and sicker, and they wrote him out. That's why he's not in later episodes.
Well, they had him.
He finally died.
They had him where he was sitting a lot after that for a while, and that's because of that.
He passed away during the shooting of that.
Just like Bewitched,
survived the series. Yeah.
Just like Bewitched, Dick York. Apparently, he was really suffering with back and stuff like that, and he was even doing the shows with his back problems now. And you know what? Sadly, if you check on Dick York, he died pretty much penniless.
Yeah, emphysema.
Oh, wow. Sad. Yeah, sad. Very sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
Yeah, Bae Benedict, she was over on the, Petticoat Junction. She passed away during the filming of that,
Right.
Still going.
Right.
And that was, then they created that whole universe of Green Acres and Petticoat Junction, Beverly Hillbillies. They were all
Beverly Hill. I was just going to say Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, they were all in the same universe.
Who didn't love that? Who didn't love that silly show?
Oh, yeah. They'd have interchangeable shows. The Beverly Hillbillies would visit Petticoat Junction.
They did.
Exactly.
Sam the druggist
or somebody.
Yeah, Sam the druggist would show up on Green Acres.
And there was Mr. Hooper. Wasn't Mr. Hooper was on Green Acres as well.
Yeah,
Green Acres and Petticoat, I think.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Douglas.
Good imitation.
He was funny.
God, have to climb up the pole to answer the phone.
But the thing is, the music, right? We're all about the music here. Those 60s sitcoms and all those shows, each and every one of them had a memorable theme song to go with the Beverly Hillbillies. You mentioned Batman. The best whole thing about the Batman show was the introduction when you see Catwoman, the Penguin, and they're all cartoon. Batman, they swing and then they, you go, oh my God,
Batman.
Well,
the Green
my
Hornet,
favorite, Green Hornet,
right.
Where it started out like that.
Or again, the most useful song for a show, Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
It tells you everything you need to know. Exactly where they are now.
You should step in on any episode.
Wrote that song for it.
Yes, he did.
He wrote the thing.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Amazing.
Who wrote that song? You were saying
Schwartz.
The producer, the man who created it. Yeah.
Really?
He also was behind the Brady Bunch and more than those shows too.
The Green Hornet. The Green Hornet. The sidekick was Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Right.
Kato. They called it the Kato Show over in Hong Kong.
Right.
Chinese people watch it. Go, hey, let's watch the Kato Show.
But, that's funny.
The thing is with of course the Gilligan's Island when they changed it because and the rest and they just Professor and Marion. And I always preferred when they gave full credit. Of course, I met Don Wells later in life. And the skipper. So I've met two of the castaways.
I'm jealous.
Oh my God, Don Wells was absolutely stunning.
3-hour tour,
that movie killed me because they've been on the island for how many years and they couldn't build a boat.
Right.
I mean, really, or they couldn't fix the boat or something, which they did. I think in one of the series episodes, they did build the boat, I think, or fix it, or they built a raft or something like that.
Well, here's a poll for you, Royce.
Yes.
Ginger or Marianne?
Both.
Let's see.
I like both.
Listen. Monday, Tuesday.
Come on, it's Ginger.
Were you Ginger? Were you a Ginger man?
I don't know.
As a young boy, I was Marianne. Total Marianne.
Yeah.
But then around 18, Ginger started looking pretty good, Rachel.
Well,
I started realizing there were attributes that were a bit more galore with Ginger.
Yeah, I don't know if I could actually. I don't know if I would actually pick one.
Minnow, it went down in a storm. They didn't need nothing. No sub. They don't need no sub to take it down.
What was the professor's name?
Oh, I know that. That's one of these trivia points. I do know that. I can't think of it right now, but it's one of these Phineas, or it's one of those fun. It's got a fancy kind of
RH.
RH.
Is it like Reginald? I know it's something like it's one of those fancy type names.
Right. Roy Hinckley.
Roy Hinckley.
And what was the skipper's name?
Oh,
Skipper.
No, that's like a.
That's all I ever heard. Skipper.
He's
Yeah.
like a Phineas or a Thaddeus or something like that.
It was
Thaddeus.
Jonas.
Jonah. Yeah.
It was Jonas, I think. Jonas Grumbly or something like that. I'm not getting the last name.
Yeah, Jonas.
But it's only mentioned once in the and you have to listen to the radio in the background giving the report of their crash in the early episodes. But they did have names. And according to Sherwood, Gilligan's name, if he was to have one, was going to be Willie.
Willie
Gilligan. And I always, because to me, Gilligan is his first name.
Gilligan's
and we just,
the way. Yeah, Gilligan's the guy's name. Yeah.
That's interesting trivia.
Did anybody watch Lost in Space?
Oh, yeah. I hated it. I absolutely hated that. With that freaking Professor Smith. What the hell, Smith? It just back off. They'll be off this damn planet in a week if you shut up and leave everything alone.
I was such a fan of Jonathan Harris, though.
He's great. The character frustrated the hell out of me because he was the one that screwed up. We're finally getting off, Professor. What do you think about danger? Will Robson, the robot said, "Don't trust Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith's lying," and Will would disobey the robot, not listen to Smith and cack it all out.
Or every kid wanted that robot too.
Oh yeah.
Something like this would actually make a good show discussing old movies. It's kind of a fun free for all. When you think about it.
Well, the movies I do know I am a buff on. TV shows that I'm a fan of, I am a buff on a bit. So I'd love to be part of one of those discussions. I don't get to do that on my channel.
Wasn't there a space, not Lost in Space? Wasn't there another space show? There was a guy.
Oh, Battlestar Galactica in '78.
Oh, there was one of the guys who used to be on a show from way back, and he was on Car 54 where he used to go ooh ooh ooh.
Yeah, right.
I know what you're talking about. That's called It's About Space. It's about time.
It's about space.
It's about time. It's about time to slap your face.
That thing lasted like 6 months, but I love the thing. The two astronauts go back in time with caveman days.
It actually lasted two seasons.
Didn't last long.
They only try. Yeah, it was canceled during the second season because the first season wasn't selling. So they decided to send the astronauts back to the 20th century with the cave people.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, did anybody else love the movie Time Machine?
Yes.
Oh,
Time Machine. Yeah,
which one? I'm a fan.
The old version.
I like the 1960 version, but I also like
Rod Taylor.
Yeah.
H.G. Wells one. I like.
Yeah.
I
also like the one with what's his name? The one was put out in the 90s. I think that got greatly maligned. I thought it was a very interesting remake.
I didn't actually see that one for some reason. I love.
Yeah, it's God. What's his? Why can't I think of his name?
He's McDowell.
He's a blonde actor, and at the time, still in his 30s. He was in. What's the name of it?
Michael York.
No, younger than him. Boy, I wish I.
Space Runner or Space something. The blonde guy.
Oh, let me see.
You'll get it, Michael.
Yeah.
It's about space time. It's about space.
Hey, Rachel, let me ask you. I've seen more than one person say that you sent them here. Were you having a show right before this started?
Yeah, I was just streaming. I called it "Killing Time" till Royce gets going or something. And then I said, "Come on over, watch. Let's all watch Royce."
Thank you, thank you very much. I want to thank all these new people that are here, and of course my regulars as well. But if you guys like what you see, we have a live podcast every Sunday, And during the week, we'll throw some other things. And I've got several playlists, why we love the Central Coast, tours of famous places, even some construction tips. Feel free to go ahead and subscribe and even hit that.
Help Bryce out, everybody.
Hit that bell. We're trying to build the show. And we've been on a little bit of a roll lately. We're trying to keep it going.
Yeah, I already subscribed. So.
Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
cool.
Do you have a podcast also? Johnny? Johnny, do you have a podcast also?
Everybody asks me that. Okay, I even had Rachel's one. People are wondering. Okay, so I have a channel, but I don't have content. I'm not really interested in that. It's not my bag up in content and all that. I'm more interested in my DJing on the internet, right?
Oh, nice.
Right. So,
but and how do you find that, the DJing on the internet?
Oh, I'm a DJ on the Doo-Wop Cafe.
On the Doo-Wop Cafe, interesting.
doowopcafe.org. Yeah, so there's like a whole pile of DJs. Okay. I'm the youngest, actually. There's the rest of them are like in their 70s, but we
sounds cool.
It's to keep all the group harmony and all that, keep that music alive. Like the Penguins, the Moon Glows, people like that, keep all their music alive. Right?
Totally cool.
Yeah, I'd like to eventually do a video on the doo-wop era. Because you know what? At the time, that was freaking rock and roll.
That was freaking rock and roll, and it was good too.
It was good.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. There's things that I found out. Like I was on there in the DJ a year and a half ago, and I took a bit of a break, but I just recently came back on a 3-hour show on Tuesdays, and there's things that I've learned, like groups and the people that sang in those groups and everything. The things that I've learned is just unbelievable. And so we have collectors, like die-hard collectors that come into the chat room and talk, and we can find they send us, sometimes they'll send us files. They'll give us files they own records. Like I was telling on Rachel's channel, they have records that are worth like thousands of dollars. They're very, really die-hard.
Okay.
Wow.
Collectors, right? Yeah, collectors.
Yeah. The records that I wouldn't be able to afford. Let's put it that way. If I bought one, my 40-year marriage would be down to zero. I'd be sleeping in the shed.
Well, I tell you, it is a lot of money to spend on a record.
Oh yes,
I may have spent a little over $100 on my most expensive record, and it was a white album. It was the white album. It had some zeros in the front, not alphabetical, alphabets. And it was in the 2% of the lowest numbers.
Wow.
It sounds good when I say it that way. It's actually 70,000, but in the context of 3 million, it's in the 2% of the lowest numbers.
I think I have the white album actually. I have a 45 Badfinger on the Apple label.
Good. Yeah, and this is on the Apple label too. It's an original American pressing. I don't know if that's and everything is pristine. It comes with the 4 posters of the guys. Well, four photographs. Yeah. It's the lightweight stuff, not the heavier stock that the new ones have now.
Right.
Yeah.
And the poster was in pristine condition. I checked it all out, the numbers and everything, and it was like an original American pressing. I've got a couple of
awesome
Parlophone pressings of like
there's only 3 bands that I'd pay that kind of money for. The Beatles is one.
Right. Well, that's what this was, the Beatles White Album.
Yeah, I have it, but I don't think I don't think the label's Apple. I'm not sure. I have to check, but I don't think it's an Apple. I'm not sure, right? But the Badfinger one, I was looking all over for it because it's got the Apple label, that's the Apple sticker label on it, on the 45, and it's Day After Day is on the side A, I think.
One of their best.
My wife and I were listening to the Rolling Stones the other night. It was our 50th anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary!
Thank you. And our first date in 1972 was at a Rolling Stones concert in Long Beach, where we lived.
Wow!
And it was the Exile on Main Street tour.
Awesome.
And, so we saw that in '72, and
wow,
Yeah,
That's when they were younger too.
We weren't married at the time, but we wound up married. Now it's been 50 years. This
wow,
the 30th of June.
What memories?
Congratulations, Bush.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Thank you.
Like I'm married 40 years, so.
Yeah, I heard you say that. Congratulations.
Our anniversary was June. I better remember this. My wife's downstairs, so she's not going to kill me. 22nd, I think, something like that.
Close enough.
Wow.
Josh, what kind of shape is that second state butcher in? I'm kind of curious about that. That seems like a good price to me. Let me know in the comments below.
Yes, Jim just wrote Frank Zappa. Yeah, I mentioned that in Rachel's thing that Frank Zappa wrote. It was co-producer of that song, "Memories of Saint El Monte" or something like that. I have the song. I should remember it. But he really liked the doo-wop sound, and he was co-producer and co-writer of that song for the Penguins. And he liked the doo-wop stuff, right? And when I found out, that's what I mean by finding out these things, right? When I found that out, I was like, holy crap, you got to be kidding, Frank Zappa of all people, right?
I gotta ask Josh D a question here. His store has a second state butcher for $2.65 right now. I just got to ask you. I'm not used to this terminology. Does that mean that I see a lot of them where the butcher paper has been pulled off? They're a little damaged, some more than others. Is that what second state means?
No, that's a third state, what you're describing.
Okay.
The first state is the butcher cover with just the boys in the butcher's shop. That's the first state. Second state is when you've got the slick over it. So Paul's in the trunk and Ringo's turtleneck is filled. So that's the second state. In your third state, it was somebody started to peel it off to reveal the butcher cover underneath yesterday and today. So a second state is really the ones you kind of want because the third state people get too curious. They figure they got one. Too many kids are there going, I got the butchers. I got to rip it, and they they start to tear it. So the ones to me are the most valuable would be a second state rather than even the first state. It's an actual butcher. It's clear. There it is. It's what came out, which are the rarest of the bunch. But the second states are kind of curious. That's the one I'd like. Okay,
you lost me there. What? Like, are you talking about when they mentioned butcher and everything? I thought you were talking about butcher meat, or like what the hell's that got to do with music?
So what happens is the Beatles come out and they release an album in the United States. This is not available in the UK because they have different. They have a different lineup. The song order and different things were there, and some albums were purely made out of piecemeal. We'll take a little bit of Yesterday Today. We'll put a little bit out of Rubber Soul, a little bit out of Revolver. We'll mash them together. We'll stick them together. We'll make a thing. In America, so you had albums like Beatles 6, Beatles 65, and you've got Yesterday and Today, which is kind of basically Revolver. What the UK got is Revolver. A lot of those songs made it on there. And so the one that most people have and the one that's in wide circulation is the one with Paul McCartney's in a trunk. It's a white album, a background, and the boys are standing around looking rather boring, kind of standard picture. But what happened was that they got this artist friend of theirs to picture them. They're all in lab coats or butcher coats, white butcher coats, and there's baby doll parts with heads and arms and stuff around and slab some meat on them, the Beatles. And of course, there's controversial Capitol executives freaked out, said, there's no way you can do this. Well, we've already sent a store. Recall those fucking albums. So they recalled the albums. They got they said, well, what are we going to do with it? We've already printed them. Put something else on top of it. So they put a slick, it's called a slick on top of it, pasted it over. But the kids being the kids, the Beatlemaniacs, they figured it out pretty quick. They go, they did this thing called the Butcher album. What? Yeah, I've got one. Here's the Butcher album. Yeah, well, not only that, they covered it over. And if you're lucky enough, well, how do I know if I got one? Well, look to the right of the trunk where Paul is. And you see a little black shadow part. That's showing through the white paper. That's Ringo's turtleneck. Check it out. And so they became a highly sought after, really the first of the big Beatle grails that people would go after, wanting a
big time collectors thing right there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I've seen that too a long time ago. That cover with the parts and all that. I think I've seen
a lot of them.
it's famous. Yeah, it's a famous collector's item.
Yeah, you see a lot of them damaged from having the paper pulled off and stuff.
So the first time I ever saw it was in this book by
nice.
Roy Kerr and Tony Tyler. This is an updated version, originally released in 1975.
Okay.
And the first page you see when you open it up.
Right.
There you go. There's your Butcher album.
I remember seeing that. Yep.
That's the and then I don't know if they've got a secondary copy.
I can imagine. I can imagine the record companies that day. I'm sure they didn't like that.
I know we're talking about the clean cut Beatles. It's like where did they get the idea to put a bunch of butchered babies?
Holy crap! I could just see the executives now. Their tops of their heads blew off.
The thing I just finished reading was Joe Orton's Up Against It. This is the play that he had written, or a screenplay he had written for the Beatles to do a film. Joe Orton famously murdered by his gay husband, lover person, a guy named Ken Halliwell killed him. And so Joe Orton was given the opportunity to write a play for the Beatles, but he had them all dressed up like girls, and they're smoking pot and sleeping with each other. It just became kind of a mess. And Epstein freaked out. Says, "No way we can do this with the Beatles." This is 1967, and so the whole thing. He wrote it in '66. It was the Beatles were all ready for it, but this thing was way over the top. This is crazy. And so I started reading the screenplay. So
and around that time, there was even some serious talk about the Beatles doing the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Where Paul would play Frodo, John was going to play Gandalf for sure. Yes. Ringo was going to be Sam, and I'm not sure. I can't remember what George was, but there was serious talk about it. And once they really talked out how to film it and everything, they realized there wasn't the technology to really do that, unless they just did a spoof. And there was even talk of that for a while.
You remember the group Klaatu?
Yeah,
they were saying that was the Beatles. When Beatles broke up, they were saying that was the Beatles in the Klaatu because they sounded exactly like the Beatles. And,
Sub Rosa Subway is the one. And the thing with that is that Ringo had come out in 1974 with Goodnight Vienna. So you got a picture of Klaatu Barada Niktu. The Day the Earth Stood Still, the guy with the robot. So there's Ringo in the star, in the space. So he's playing the alien, and then the big robots with him. And so Klaatu comes up. So the Beatle freaks, them freaks was right when they said you was dead. Those guys, the real Beatles, say, "Oh, hey, Paul, there's Ringo and he's on the thing Klaatu." And so Klaatu ties in with Goodnight Vienna. It's the Beatles come back. Because on the song Sub Rosa Subway, that one really does sound like Paul. The rest of them, not so much. They do a little Beach Boys riff with
Dr. Marvello sounded a whole lot like George and a George song.
I don't.
On that first album.
Wait. Just that. Which one, Michael?
Dr. Marvello. And Sir Rugglesby sounded just like You Know My Name, Look Up My Number, kind of goof around. I was sold for a moment when they came out, and of course Rachel knows I love this band. I think they're Canada's very best band, and they're one of my top bands in rock and roll. I've named 13 who live on my fictional Mount Rock Olympus, and Klaatu has a spot amongst the gods. Well, they outgrew just being merely influenced by the Beatles. Take a look at their second album, which was a space opera of all damn things. Their third album, coming back to an even writing, because John Willischuk had kind of taken over the writing for the second album, and the third album was even better than the first as far as great rock pop. Then they got bogged down with endangered species. Still an excellent album, but they had studio musicians coming in, and it was mainly a John Wollaschuk. He got to actually play. The others mostly just sang and didn't. The drummer wasn't even on it, I don't think. But then they were lost by that time. Record companies didn't want anything to do with them. They released one other album, Magenta Lane, and it's marvelous. It's them returning to their roots. They are as great a band as the Police.
I like the song that came off that.
Klaatu, you can hear the Beatles influence in Klaatu. I have the one with the one with the sun.
Yeah.
Yellow one. And you can hear the Beatles kind of influence in that album for sure.
Well, here's the thing: the band proper never claimed to be the Beatles. They didn't want that, and on top of that, everybody gives this band shit, but they don't give Badfinger, which Badfinger doesn't deserve shit, but they don't give Badfinger or ELO shit for sounding like the Beatles. And guess what? Klaatu did it better than both those artists.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Well, you've covered them.
They were monsters, Royce. They were monsters.
Well, you've covered them about twice on your show, haven't you?
Yeah, and I'm going to cover them real soon here because you know what? I want to cover that whole thing. Yeah.
Klaatu was ahead of their time for sure.
Yeah, victims of record company marketing more than anything else, because that's what's lingered, unfortunately, for them.
Right.
Well, you had two truly great songwriters, and their drummer Terry Draper, a part-time, almost the George of the group as far as songwriting, fewer songs. But guess what? He co-wrote "Calling Occupants." That was a big hit for Karen Carpenter. All right, Terry Draper. You know, so you had three great songwriters. It's always in the song. I've said it before, but it's always in the song.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got everything but the last one, Magellan or whatever it is. I got the rest.
Yeah, Magenta Lane. Oh, you got to get it, Rachel. You can order it through their website. They've even got a couple of re-releases with remixes if you're really into it.
Really? Klaatu has a website. Oh, I got to check that out.
One of the releases is called Sociology. Okay. Or Sology. Anyway, and they kept with their artwork. You know, with Klaatu, you'd always get the sun, and you'd always get the little mouse on the corner. And at the end of every album, you heard a little squeak. So they have their own mythology. And to this day, I just wish they'd do one more album. They're all alive, you know, but John Wollaschuk won't have anything to do with it. He's retired. Yeah.
But because the first one, the EF 345 Eastern or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That one, that ends with the mouse squeak, and then Hope, the second album, begins with the mouse squeak. So they tied the beginning and the ending in.
Good point.
I think
the sun that appears on the cover of the first one is in ruins
on the floor of the city.
On the floor of the second one. Yeah.
Why don't we all give our opinion on this comment here from Music Talk with John? Do you think the Beatles would have been better if Clapton was in the band from the beginning instead of George? Would the Beatles have been more blues based? Well, they would have definitely been more blues based. That's a fact. But I don't think that they would have been a better band. I think George Harrison was the king of the hooks. One or two notes, you know what song he's playing.
They wouldn't have been as good a band.
I agree. I agree with that.
Okay.
I mean,
although Eric Clapton was God. I mean, he's fantastic. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, but you know, the Beatles, it wasn't just John and Paul.
No.
And it wasn't just George coming in at the late. Right. It was as much Ringo. That to me is the band. Of course, Led Zeppelin, I also think, is a band that is a band. All for one, one for all, to the end. Each one gets a vote. Yeah. Each one gets an input. And they had to fight McCartney there at the end for that input. But even McCartney, you know, he had to tell what's his name, who wanted to film them off the coast of Africa in some rundown ruin of an old Roman fort. And the guy goes, well, we could really still do that. Think of the visuals. And Paul goes, no, we're not going to do that. And he goes, but why? And he goes, Ringo won't.
Yeah.
Ringo put a kibosh on that.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's magic, man. That's magic.
No. The Beatles were only the Beatles with the combination they had,
Right.
But why was it there was some interest in replacing George Harrison with Clapton at one point? I've heard that over and over again.
That's because of a comment John made during the Let It Be film where he said, we'll just get Eric Clapton in. Yeah. But, he said that about Nilsson a couple of years later. If the Beatles, George, him, and Ringo got together, they'd just replace Paul McCartney with Harry Nilsson.
Okay.
That's John. That's just John being John.
John, yeah.
Yeah, he's so entertaining. I just, you got what he thought in the moment, and that's his brilliance, right? Yeah. And that also tells you he never thought of the band as the second coming like we did. He later years he would say, look, if you want the Beatles back, just listen to the old records. You got the oldies.
What John said though one time, that he's better than Jesus Christ or something like that. Boy, that really kicked him in the ass there.
More popular than Jesus.
More popular than Jesus Christ. That was like,
he was
holy crap.
He even claimed to be Jesus Christ. At one point, but he was higher than the kite, and the Beatles just went,
At one point, he looked like him.
Well, when you're hired in the kite after eating mushrooms or whatever you call them, you think you're an apple, you think you're a toad, so it don't matter. You're anything.
No, John was a living artist, and he imbibed. He's almost like the Edgar Allan Poe of rock. He consumed. Yeah. He was hungry. He read pop books, and when he saw McCartney reading even deeper shit, he got interested in that. He was the consummate artist, but he had to be moved. He had to set himself in almost dangerous situations for him to get the impetus to keep him going. He was always fearful about the next level. What do I do next? That's an artist, man. That's why I love him so much. He's just,
I don't know. I kind of like the early Beatles. When the Beatles started getting into the more, I don't know, weirder kind of stuff, I kind of lost interest. But I kind of liked them right up to, I guess, Sgt. Pepper, maybe.
Yeah.
No, then after that.
But even with the early, but go ahead, Bryce.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, Johnny. Sorry. That's when I became a Beatles fan. Was with Sgt. Pepper's, because there was a lot of heavier bands coming out. You had the Cream and Disraeli
the lyrics
and
lyrics,
but I actually like the lyrics.
Kind of started to get a little kind of weird.
For me, that was the second coming of the.
And
Beatles,
I'm a Beatles fan,
Peppers.
so I'm a Beatles fan.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say that John, in those early years, was the dominant writer. All right. So once again, John Lennon he's been such an important part of that whole process. He dominated. He got all the early singles for the most part. Hell, their third album, he wrote 10 out of the 13 songs on it. But he would push himself. So that's early Beatles, man. That John was clearly the leader still.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'd pretty much stopped listening to the Beatles around that point. And then all of a sudden, Sgt. Pepper's came out. My older brother, who is 9 years older than me, discovered I smoked weed and started inviting me and my friends out to his place in Las Vegas. Him and his roommate were both craps dealers in Las Vegas. And we'd hitchhike out to my brother's house and go in there and smoke weed with him and listen to Sgt. Pepper's like all the time, And I actually grew to absolutely love that album.
Oh yeah.
Lucy in the sky with diamonds. after a few joints and stuff, boy, you're really seeing that stuff. You get the visuals of it.
Yeah, I'm sure that helped, but
nothing takes away from nobody. No matter what anybody says, they can't take away the fact that McCartney and Lennon were like the best, one of the couple best songwriters, I think,
absolutely,
of all time.
I did a show on songwriters, and the picture, the thumbnail for the show was McCartney and Lennon.
Sure.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, to this day,
they wrote the best songs. I mean, they knew how to really move you with their songs.
I mean, to this day, when you hear some groups, you can hear the Beatles' influence in there for sure.
Oh yeah.
And I remember back when a lot of the groups, like Jerry and the Pacemakers and all them, they used to start dressing up like the Beatles, with that silvery kind of suit with the Beatle boots and stuff like that.
The Mersey sound.
Ferry across the Mersey.
Yeah,
that was a great song though.
It is.
Of course, they were managed by Brian Epstein, so Epstein
were
the Beatles and Jerry and the Pacemakers.
That's right.
Yeah,
but somebody more like Eric Burdon, the Animals. Everybody was wearing the Beatles outfit. The Animals had the Beatles suits, and
not everybody. My father absolutely refused to buy me a pair of Beatle boots.
What? No Beatle boots? What about a Beatle wig?
All my friends had them. I was so jealous.
I remember when I was a kid in Montreal watching on a small black and white TV, like Rachel mentioned one time on earlier, that the Ed Sullivan Show, and when we watched the Beatles for the first time on the Ed Sullivan black and white TV. Well, my sister used to have this winter hat. It was like it looked like ZZ Top's hat, kind of with that he wears, his icon hat that he wears, like. Anyways, it looked kind of like that, but it looked like furry, right? And my brother had a guitar, so as soon as I seen the Beatles, I thought it was the Beatles. So I put that hat on, like the furry thing, like it was a hat of the hair, and I took the guitar and started strumming it. Broke a few of his strings. He was pissed off at me, but it was like I remember that time. But I watched millions and millions and millions and millions of people watched the Ed Sullivan Show. Beatles on it. So.
I bought a John Lennon beach cap that he wore in Help and everything.
Oh yeah.
Wore it to hell. Wore it to hell. I just thought I was the coolest thing to be seen.
Well, John got that cap. Yeah, John got that cap because Bob Dylan. On the Bob Dylan debut, he's got the hat. So then Lennon goes, "Oh, Bob Dylan's my guy. I gotta get a hat like Dylan."
When I think of Help, I think of John Lennon. Looks, he's the coolest in the film, and George has the best hair. When I think of that film, but that John Lennon in that hat, man, it was like I had never seen anything like it before.
So many of the British invasion bands had really strong roots in the blues. So many of them.
Yeah, I
didn't feel that nearly as much with the Beatles. And I know that Eric Clapton left the Yardbirds once they started reaching some commercial success because he wanted to play strictly blues, and that's when he joined John Mayall and the Blues Breakers featuring Eric Clapton. Because that was a blues band. All he wanted to play was blues.
Yeah, Graham I can Heart Full of Soul, and Clapton's going, I can't deal with this.
He can't deal with that. He left almost disgusted. I mean, imagine him trying to dominate the Beatles and only play blues when they were never really that blues.
He would have lasted a week.
Because Clapton only lasted about a week in every band he was in.
The Stones. The Stones.
Don't get me wrong. I am a major Clapton fan.
No, I know you are, and I am too. But he's not above criticism.
But he's not a joiner. I think he tried despite his better inclinations. Okay.
Look at this comment right here. This says it all. He never liked playing with anyone. Always felt like he was a one-man show.
Yeah. I heard that.
That sounds about right.
As far as the band goes,
the Rolling Stones were like the blues as well. In their music, you can hear.
They were really a blues-based band. Yeah,
just like Led Zeppelin.
Absolutely. Led Zeppelin, big time. Like every song on Led Zeppelin 1 was somebody else's blues song.
When you hear Robert Plant sing and he gets into this bluesy, oh man, I tell you.
Yeah, Lennon top billing. Give John top billing. King Beatle. He's the lead Beatle. That's what. There's a little clip of Billy Preston online. Somebody, who's the leader? He goes, to make no mistake, John Lennon was the leader. John Lennon's the King Beatle. And even the great thing in the thing, Paul McCartney goes, well, you're the leader. You're always the leader. You've always been that.
Well,
Lennon goes, yeah, whatever.
I think in some interviews that I heard, Paul McCartney looked up to John Lennon a lot.
Well, John was older than him. John's born in 1940. Paul's born in 42. When you're 17 years old and you've got a 15-year-old, there's no fucking way the 15-year-old's going to be your boss.
Right.
That's right. I'll kick the crap out of a 15-year-old. Yeah.
And Paul didn't give George a break with even a thinner space between them. Yeah, you know, he was
when George passed, Paul goes, it's like my little brother. Paul George was never allowed to grow up with Paul. He was always the little kid that was third in the order. And when you watch the Get Back documentary, it's very apparent that the cancer, John and Paul, they're the power, and then you got George and Ringo kind of trailing in behind. And it's very evident there.
And then Yoko shows up, and the rest is history.
Well, John abdicates at that point. I'm not into this stuff. He's so messed up. His mother, Julia, dies when he's a teenager. His dad abandoned him when he was like a little kid. So this is a guy, Mama Don't Go, you know, the Plastic Ono Band album. So this is a man with a lot of issues. I'm reading Stuart Sutcliffe's biography by his sister. It says Lennon would tell a joke. Everybody laughed, and Lennon would just stop there and stare at them until everybody felt uncomfortable and everybody slowly stopped laughing. To create the tension in the room.
We can't forget about Pete Best as well. Pete Best was the first drummer.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't the first drummer. But
no, not at all.
I thought he was the first drummer.
Pete Best is one of the drummers.
I thought he was the first one. Oh, okay.
No, he's not the first. Because it's John Lennon and the Quarrymen. So you got one of the kids from the Quarrymen in there first.
Right.
Then, because they're looking around for different drummers, they go through a whole bunch of different drummers. You can see pictures of these different kids in out and about the time. Because keep in mind, they're kids in Liverpool there. And so then Pete Best comes in because his mom's got the Indira Club over there, the Jacaranda. Jacaranda. And so because of that, they could hang out.
That's pretty funny. You know, Van Halen invited David Lee Roth to join the band because he had a PA system and they were tired of renting one.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If you got a PA system, you're in a band. I found that out a long time ago. I always had a PA system, brother. Always. You got the PA, you call the shots. You know?
Right.
At least on a local level. That's,
Gene Simmons made like a 10-song demo for Van Halen, and they really trusted that he was going to get him a record deal, and it didn't work out. Then they came out with their 1978. But one of the things that Gene was insisting that they changed their name from Van Halen to Daddy Longlegs.
Daddy Longlegs. Oh, shit.
And nobody knows why. There was no explanation for that, but he decided they needed to be Daddy Longlegs instead of Van Halen.
But Gene Simmons, though, a lot of people don't kind of like him because they think he's too egotistical. He wanted to run everything in the band.
Right.
It was his way or the highway. It was his way or the highway type thing, right?
Yeah,
that can't be true.
You watch Michael? Do you watch Michael's show, Johnny? Michael Nolan. No. That's the guy next to you there.
Oh,
Johnny.
Right at the bottom. Yes.
Yeah, but watch Michael's show. Michael,
I know. I have to
some of the best analysis that you're going to find on YouTube in the what I call the vinyl community. People collect records, people interested in bands and stuff. And Michael goes into great detail talking about people like Gene Simmons. His favorite are some band called Motley Crue. Michael loves the Gruel or these Motley characters out of LA. And they come in for a lot of discussion on the old program. And so we'll talk about those guys. And he's got his line of favorites, and he loves Ticketmaster. You will not see a bigger champion for Ticketmaster.
Yeah,
right. You watch all these things. And of course, don't even get us started on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, there's a little fella that runs that whole thing, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Dolly Parton, fantastic. God, she's metal. But anyway, there's so much, and you got to watch Michael and subscribe to him, Sonny. It's Michael I just
subbed Michael. So
welcome aboard, Johnny. Thanks, I appreciate it.
The tribe, my friend.
This is interesting stuff.
Right on, Johnny.
This is the kind of panel, like I mentioned on Rachel's. This is the kind of panel that there's no drama. We're talking about actual, real, good stuff.
He's gonna hate my show.
Well. Okay, a little bit of drama.
I absolutely love surf music myself.
It is spooky. She calls it Rachel's ghost for a very good reason.
No, but this is a great this is a great panel, a discussion of really interesting, like trivia and stuff like that. The stuff I didn't even know, like the Beatles, for example. I thought Pete Best was the first drummer, but he wasn't.
Yeah,
so it's like, and I'm a Beatles fan, and I didn't even know that. I thought.
Well, you know what? All I can say, Johnny, is you should check out Royce Weekly, because we usually do have a good panel, whether I'm on or not. Royce puts together some really great panel, and I think we've had a wonderful panel tonight. These guys, all these channels know what I think about them. They're sister channels to me.
I sub Royce too. Because that's why. Like I was listening. Rachel was saying I got to go over to Royce's, but I thought I heard her say Rice, and I'm looking for Rice. What the hell's Rice?
Not the first time I've been called Rice. You know what, Betty, my wife's grandmother called me Rice till the day she died.
So just don't add patties after that.
So I looked on I think Junkyard Vinyl or something. I looked on his, and sometimes they show the who they're signed up with, like, or sub to, and I happened to see it's Royce. So that's when I found you, and I was in the chat lurking, and I thought, oh shit, I got to go on this panel. These guys are fantastic. Like I love
thank you. We try to have a good time.
Well, you've been good too yourself, man.
We've appreciated it big time.
And it's like in The Sopranos, where Silvio, he goes to the Tony Soprano, he goes, I was just about to get out, but it sucked me back in.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever seen the Sopranos, right? The Sopranos, but Silvio, that's what he said, right? So as soon as I seen you guys, it's like, I was about to, but it sucked me right in. And I can't. I mean, that's not the great imitation of Silvio on The Sopranos. I mean, anyway, what the hell?
Sucked me back in. Okay, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yes,
now.
you is.
Okay.
Yep. I want to thank everybody in the chat. A lot of new folks here. If you enjoyed the content, go visit the channel. Subscribe tonight if you'd like. I would appreciate it. But anyway, all of these people here: Rachel, Bruce, the R&B show, Johnny L. Sounds like you got a fun show.
Bruce,
I'm going to be looking that up.
R&B show. Do you have a channel? Hold on.
Yes, he does.
What is it? What is his channel?
It's the R&B show, man.
Yeah,
the R&B show.
The R&B show.
Yeah, and yes, they cover rhythm and blues from time to time, but it actually stands for Ron and Bruce, who they kind of do co-videos together, just rapping with each other. But Bruce also adds his own solo videos to that. And Bruce, man, is one of, you know what? He knows his shit, man.
Okay, hold on.
He knows his shit.
I love Jeff Rice in the house.
Okay, so like I'm looking for the
Dan, thank you.
R&B show, but I can't.
Yeah, just put the ad sound to it. You know, put R and then the ad sound and B right next to each other, and then show and in front.
Thank you.
I have R and B and show, but I can't seem to find it.
Huh?
I'm looking right all the way down.
Okay, Bill. Thank you.
Somebody drop a link for it.
Yeah.
That's, able to drop
easier,
a link so he can follow the link. He click
right.
That's a lot easier.
Hi, Chris.
Drop a link for it.
Good to see you, buddy. Chris Elliott. My dear friend Caitlin.
I don't think it would be under Bruce Cologne, would it, Bruce? I always find you with the R&B stuff.
It's always the R&B show. Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
What's that?
And the beginning of the chat all on there. I'm like one of the first few comments. You could probably link to it through there as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah, go to the top of the comments because we usually check in. And
okay, wait.
You might see his channel that highlighted. It'll take you right to it.
Yeah, it's usually really easy to find.
And the icon is a Marshall amp, and next to it, sometimes it's the R&B show, but you might just see Beat Cologne on there, Beat Cologne 38, right. But that'll take you to it. And if not, I'll find you. I'll send you the link to them.
Okay. Well, because I put capital R and not A and D, but an and.
And B. Yeah.
And B, and then I put show next to it. SH.
Yeah, that should take you right there.
What's one of the topics that you've covered recently, and then he'll find it that way?
We recently did the police synchronicity at 40, so that's one of the videos that was on there.
Synchronicity at 40.
At 40, yeah.
Yeah. Great album that was too, by the way.
Oh,
masterpiece.
Yeah, I loved it. I love to play. I got all there. I got a box set, police box set. That's I got a couple. Actually,
okay.
Couple.
I found it.
Awesome.
Okay, so you got your picture, your avatar is Marshall amps, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, subscribe.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
Got it.
Great.
Yeah, Rachel, I have that same box. You have the vinyl one, right?
Yeah, it's vinyl. And then I also got the CD, the blue one with the police, the CD, the
Message in a box.
Kit. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Police in a box. Yeah.
So once again, Bruce, Rachel, Michael, Johnny, thank you so much for coming on and helping.
Thanks for having me on the panel. Thanks for having me on the panel.
Absolutely. We love you guys in the chat. We really appreciate each and every one of you. And that's what's going on in Royce's world today. Thank you all so much.
Night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.